Aloha Om Swastiastu, beloveds. Welcome to this lesson in, it's actually one of the foundational practices, your introduction to flow, and more specifically, introduction to Poi, and even more specifically, introduction to soul flow, Dakini Poi. And we have a little kitty. And Mama is solo today, so baby's with us, just so you know. We have that beautiful presence. And so I want to start first by creating some context around this lesson and this new video. This is actually the third official lesson I've created since my introduction to Poi, in introducing others to Poi. And it dawned on me over the past year or so that it's time to upgrade, and it's time to evolve the context of how I introduce these Poi to you. And if you're watching this now, most of you I've probably referred you to our Aloha Flow instructional series, the introduction to Poi video there, and which that was back in 2013 or so. It was almost a decade ago when I made that video, and while much of it still applies, it's really interesting to reflect back and realize the journey and the evolution in the journey, and how the Poi continues, how the Poi actually, in the flow, in the art of flow, continues to deepen and expand the teachings and the lessons and the layers and the meanings. So let's start first with the origins of Poi. The origins of Poi. Where did they come from? And what is the story from the ancient Poi to the modern Poi? I'm going to start with the culture, the indigenous culture. So the art of dancing with Poi was, that we know of in recorded history, it began inside of New Zealand, and in the indigenous people called the Maori, native people, who've been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So they actually created this practice as, and I won't even say it's a practice, but they created this art as a way to tell stories about creation and about the universe. And in their language, Poi actually literally means ball on a cord. Ball on a cord, Poi. Now, from New Zealand, there was there was a migration, right, of the people, the natives, eastward toward the other Polynesian islands. We know that the Poi was introduced to the Polynesians of Tahiti, and then on to Hawai'i. Now, my personal introduction to Poi was when I was a little girl, 6 years old, living on the island of Oahu in Hawaii, and it was in the context of my Hula class and my Hula practice, and it was part of the dance. And I've also read in different places that Poi, the art, was also purposed for warrior training back in New Zealand with the Maoris, and possibly with these other Polynesians. There really isn't a whole lot of documented, recorded history and around exactly all the different elements, the stories, and the purpose of this practice, how it came to be. I really connect deeply with the essence of telling the story of creation in my own personal practice, see, almost a decade ago, I think I felt the essence of this really powerful meaning around it, but I didn't have the words to articulate it back then, and now it's clear to me that this dance has taught me so much about the ways of the universe, the ways of the moon and the sun and the planets, the night and the day, the yin, the feminine energies and the masculine energies, solar and lunar, and all of this, and these universal patterns of flow that are the makeup of our very existence, within us and all around us. The shapes, the spirals, all of it tell the story of life and of creation and of the cycles of life. So interestingly, when we look at the language of the Hawaiian language, poi does not mean ball on a cord. Poi actually is it's the staple food, not just of Hawaii, but of many Polynesian cultures, and it comes from the most sacred plants in Hawaii and also in other Polynesian islands is called the taro plant, or the kalo. And maybe you've heard of taro. That's starting to come into like some of these more progressive kinds of plant-based foods, like taro burgers and taro chips you've probably seen. And so it's a root, and the kalo plant or the taro plant, beautiful plant. The leaves are deep green, and they're all shaped like a heart, and they can get pretty large. And here in Bali and much of Asia, you go around and you can see rice fields everywhere. Well, in Hawaii and in other, not so much as much anymore in Hawaii, but more traditionally on Polynesian islands, you can see fields and fields of kalo, of taro. So instead of rice, it's this poi, and so they mush up the root and make this starchy food. That's really it's most popular, actually. They use it as baby food in Hawaii. It's really good for baby food, and they do all sorts of other things with it. Now, here's the really neat connection between this plant now and the Maoris. If you remember, the Maoris consider this the Maoris consider this it's like the art of telling stories about creation. Well, the kalo plant or the taro plant in Hawaii is considered the most sacred plant because they believe that their ancestors, their first original Hawaiians, came from this plant. Okay? And so their origin story of their people, like the first woman and man, but they don't really have it in that context. It's just more of the first people, the first family ever born in Polynesia came from this plant. And so the stalk of this plant is called oha, and how this plant, the social structure of this plant is that you have the mama or the papa plant, and then you have these shoots. The babies shoot out from underneath, and they don't go very far, and they remain attached. The babies always remain attached to the core, to the oha. And so this is the root of the word ohana. In the Hawaiian language, ohana means family. And so again, just circling it back to creation and what it means to be connected in life. Yes. And now just a word on the evolution of this art in general, from it being more of a cultural and spiritual art form and expression, to, I would say, more of a tool for performance, or prop for performance, which then actually turned into, I sense, again, I would have to do more research on this, but fire dancing, I feel, came even before the explosion of flow arts, especially in Tahiti and also in other island places. So learning the art of poi is often training to learn how to dance with fire. And then there was the explosion of something called the circus arts and poi and juggling. And so poi is actually considered a form of juggling in terms of how we categorize these different activities. There's the juggling and the poi, and then came the festival world, and that really was, I think, the kind of the intersection or the stage on which the flow arts really exploded inside of that for performance, and then now weaving into things like yoga and meditation. And so this also has been informed and influenced by more ancient movement meditations and martial arts, sword dancing, and all of these things. There, you can imagine, it's all connected on many different levels. So that's all I'll say about the origins of poi for now. We go a little bit deeper into all of this in the neurosomatic flow teacher training, but I feel like this is really sufficient. You can do some of your own research, and also, if you don't already have one of these books, make sure you get one. Let me know, and we can, if you can't get a printed copy, I can send you the PDF version of this. And this also talks about the origins of poi, a lot of what I just described to you, but it's in writing. It's the first booklet for these poi. And another book that I look forward to making available and publishing very soon this has been a work in progress, but it's the Medicine of Flow book, and so this goes much deeper into a lot of these concepts, and a lot of the concepts of neurosomatic flow. So the poi as a tool for healing and transformation, and that is really the context that I experienced poi in. Was first just curiosity. I just wanted to play. I just wanted to learn how to dance with fire. And then as I got into the practice, I noticed a radical shift in my brain and my nervous system in many different ways, and realized that there was this profound medicine inside of this practice for bringing us into balance, for repatterning the brain and the nervous system. I won't go too much into that, but in neurosomatic flow, this is where we really focus on the poi and also other flow props as tools for literally the healing and the repatterning and the restoring of the nervous system. And we do that in this program as well, just more experientially. So, and if you haven't had an NSFT session with me one-on-one yet, please do that. Get into, schedule one of the one-on-ones with me, and let's work together. It's a really powerful and fun way to release and rebirth. So now the story of Soul Flow Poi. I'll make this as brief as possible, and just to give you an idea, context of why I started to make poi in the first place. Definitely none of this was actually ever poi as a life, as something so primary in my professional life. I could have never imagined, and here we are. When I was looking for poi, I had this was over 10 years ago, and all the poi that I could find were really Lots of them were like hard plastic, rubber, rough around the edges, and or LED. I mean, those are fun too, but they can be really hard, and or fluorescent, like these weird bright kitty colors. And I wanted poi designed for the goddess, with the goddess in mind. And so that was one of my motivations, just to make poi for myself, that felt nice and that also were soft, so that I could feel more free as a beginner in trying different things. And as I went on to teach more and more, that has been really key in terms of sharing poi with beginners, which is my favorite. So the next context, the evolution, the story of soul flow poi, kind of moving into now the soul flow Dakini poi. It was my yoga teacher training in Hawaii at Hawaii Yoga Institute, when the founder of Hawaii Yoga Institute said to me, they brought me in to teach flow arts as part of their curriculum for this teacher training, which was obviously, for me, it was very inspiring. And she sat me down one day and said, Jinju, I feel like your poi need to be blessed by Pele, and they're meant to carry the mana, the power, the transformative forces, and the spirit of Aloha from Hawaii into and out to everyone who plays with them. So I immediately knew exactly what she was leading to. So I also, from growing up in Hawaii, knew that it is not pono. It's not okay to just take sand or rocks or shells from. It's really not okay to do that anywhere without. Oh, I wouldn't say it's not okay, but it's not. It's inappropriate, and it can be considered disrespectful, and it can actually cause some energetic consequences, karma. And so I went that night to the beach where we were staying, and we were working with the chant. It was and I still work with this. It's Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, and I just walked underneath the moon and chanted until I found a spot that felt like this spot to bring my prayers to. And I kneeled down and I went into prayer, and I lovingly requested to Pele and to the spirit of the Aina, to the spirit of Hawaii, her blessing to be able to take in the form of her sand on the beach, to be able to infuse this sand into every set of poi, into the weights of every set of poi, for the purpose of bringing healing, transformation, and joy. And I asked for a sign, and when I opened my eyes and looked up, the moon that was just sitting there before my prayer was now suddenly enveloped by this giant rainbow, and it was one of the most beautiful rainbows I've ever seen around a moon. And I knew immediately, I could feel the presence of Pele, could feel the presence of the spiritual entities that were like, yes, 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 for this purpose, please receive the blessing. And so ever since, there's a whole process that goes into preparing the weights. And so here are still grains from that night. And since it's been many, many years now, there are, I call this the magic sand. And so there's some black sand here from the big island of Hawaii. There's actually some sand from Nusa Penida, another volcanic island, and there's other very very special crystals and shells and just meaningful, loving items that channel so much so much beauty and so much love inside of this. So now back to poi as a spiritual tool. One of the rituals that is described in the book and that I invite on almost all new moon workshops is the ritual of writing down your prayers or your intentions on a new moon, and you can literally write them on paper, fold them up, and literally put them in. So if so many people get the poi and they realize, oh, I didn't realize they have these openings, these slits. So yes, you can even take these weights out, but you can put the prayers into your poi. And then if you haven't danced with your poi yet, it's a beautiful way to have your first dance with your poi and begin to spin your prayers around, knowing that in many cultures, especially the Tibetan culture, where you have the Tibetan prayer wheels, it is believed that a prayer in motion is 1,000 times more powerful than a prayer that is sitting still. And so just as a way to activate and to magnify and amplify whatever your intention is, and based on what we know about quantum physics and energy, it absolutely makes so much sense. And so there's also another piece of this is, again, there is the transformational part of repatterning the brain, right? There's repatterning the brain and the nervous system. However, there's a even bigger dimension to this, and where communication, there's the individual transformation, but there are also ways to communicate, right? In different dimensions, in terms of codes and patterns. And so it's more recent for me that I'm realizing as a spiritual tool that we can connect and transmit and download and transmute, and then offer up these new frequencies, and offer up these new structures of consciousness through the poi. Now that can get a little bit but that is something I'll just say just that little bit around that, and you can play inside of that concept of just how I feel like the first time this really hit home for me was in dream work, when I was able to connect with some light beings. And so this is the Goddess Brain program. Now I don't talk about this inside of the Neurosomatic Flow teacher training program, but I do a lot of dream work, and ever since I was a child I've had very phenomenal experiences in traveling and in connecting with other beings. And so I got to connect with these light beings, and they were in the sky and they came down, but the light, they had these there were these points of light, and they're kind of these there was no real they were just like energy, but they were like light dancers, and the light would just move kind of like protons and electrons, but it was like they were communicating. And so I'll never forget that, because even though I couldn't quite understand exactly what they were communicating, I could feel it. And so I realized that, and now literally, right, when we bring light into these patterns, whether it's with LED or with fire or just your inner fire, the implications for this next level of communication are quite profound. And if this all sounds really crazy to you, then that's okay too. It is a bit out there. I do feel, as I said in the beginning of this course, everything that you learn inside of this is really just an invitation, right? Nothing is the truth. Hear it, study it, look at it, and trust yourself above it. And the other major purpose of this course is to invite you to deepen and explore what spirituality means to you. And so quite possibly this may be a brand new avenue that you've never, a whole new context inside of, that you can begin to play with different aspects of spirituality for yourself. So I invite you to take it on in a playful way. So the last little seed I'm going to plant in terms of this, the spiritual aspect of this, is I had a shamanic womb session and journey that revealed a whole other aspect of the poi that, let's just call them, inside of the Goddess Brain program, we're going to explore the connection of poi and the womb. That's all I'm going to say in this lesson. We'll bring more of this in, probably into the earth spiral. And if for some reason I forget, please remind me. So let us now move on to meeting your partner. Now, this I have inside of all of the other intro to poi video lessons, is how to hold your poi. And see, I think in the very first lesson, I put it in the context of meeting your new dance partner. And it's your new dance partner, and it's also your new possibility or possibility partner, right? And so the key here is, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to hold it. I'm going to show you my first is my preferred way, is kind of an open hand hold. And so it's always the 2 peace fingers, no matter what the hold is, and palms down, and bring the handle of the poi and slide it over the 2 fingers, the peace fingers, and then you're going to take the neck of the poi and swoop it to the outside of the hand, so it's outside. This part is important. No matter how you hold the poi, make sure that the poi are not on the inside, because then it's going to get caught and feel super awkward. So make sure it's on the outside. And so I call this the open hand hold, because if you look at my fingers, when I weave the poi, my hand opens and it closes, and so it allows the prana, the energy, to flow freely through my hands and out the fingers, as opposed to I've seen a lot of people, this is another hold right here, when you have kind of a closed fist and you pinch the pointer finger and the thumb, and so you can hold it kind of like this. And there's a lot of poi out there that don't have handles, right? And so they are held like this. So they're held like this. And this is another way to play with poi. The energetics of it are different, so play with both. If you are a dancer, and I'm inviting everyone to dance inside of this, I request you play with open hands and closed hands, just really keeping the hands open. Now, this can feel like kind of loose. That's probably the biggest complaint, I guess, that I've heard from students, is like, it feels like it's going to fall off my hands. So if you're experiencing that, then here's the other. This is kind of the tight hold. So now you take the poi and you bring your palm up, and you bring your two peace fingers again, and you wrap around. So you just bring the neck of the poi in between those 2 fingers, so that the poi is on the outside of the hand, and then take this handle and wrap it around your peace fingers. And now you have, it's a much tighter hold. And so I've heard from many students that they actually prefer this. So try both ways, and it won't fall off that way. And then the third way, which I actually just showed you the pointy way. However, in the context of spinning the poi, the only time I personally will use that hold to the point between my thumb and my pointer finger is if I shorten the poi. So I can teach you that later, but I just shorten the poi and it wrapped around my hand, and now it's short and I don't have the handle anymore. And so it's fun to do both. With you can get into a lot of more technical patterns with this hold and with shorter poi. That was something I didn't mention, I don't think, before in terms of the story of Soul Flow Poi, but more in terms of NaiAsana. I think I did talk about that. There's a very heady, very technical, tech-heavy field of poi out there that is phenomenal to watch, absolutely phenomenal, that you'll see in the circus arts and the festival arts. I have really found more joy personally, and more medicine inside of just playing with simple patterns and bringing the dance and coupling the energy and the music and the dance with the poi. So one word on poi and versus the hula hoop. In the Neurosomatic Flow teacher training program, I introduced both the hoop and the poi at the same time. In this Goddess Brain program, I'm introducing the poi first, and we're going to bring the hoop in later. I want you to focus first on the poi, and we'll bring the hoop in later. And I really feel strongly that both complement each other, and the reason why I invite and request, and why at all of our retreats we actually use both poi and hoop is because the hula hoop actually forces the body to move in a way that poi does not innately force the body to move. And so if you already are a mover and a dancer, it's going to be a little bit more natural for you to move with the poi. But if you're not, especially if you're not, that's where the hula hoop can be a powerful tool to help you come into the body. And so much of this, the healing, the medicine, and the spiritual potential of it has to do with getting out of the head and coming into the body. So yes, look forward to that lesson on the hoop. We will play with both. Last thing on these props in general, the poi and the hoop, I do want to remind you that inside of the Goddess Brain program, the poi are not a requirement. I can't imagine that you wouldn't want to try playing with them, but that is the purpose of the NaiAsana practice, is where I'm going to invite you to move your body in a way that is just going with those same patterns that the poi has taught. So it's really you can still complete this course without the poi. However, I highly recommend. And if the poi ends up being a part of this program that you love and you want to go deeper, then you will definitely want to check out the Neurosomatic Flow teacher training. So, and at least the practitioner, the flow practitioner part of it, to go deeper into that. Okay, so now let's go into the last part of this lesson, is your practice. Okay, this is the fifth of the foundational practices of activating your goddess brain and birthing your inner bliss and awakening your inner fire, is flow. And if you don't remember anything else from this lesson in terms of your practice, remember 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, even 2 minutes a day, truly. And there are studies that support this really impressively. And I also encourage you to bring this 5-minute protocol into your small group meetings, and bring it into, some of you are teachers, some of you are managers, some of you, whatever workplace you are in, I invite you to bring in this 5-minute flow break concept to really help not only you, but everybody that you are connecting with or working with, to raise the energy, to raise the frequency, to increase creativity, to help people to connect. It's truly a form of meditation. There is, there's the whole context and the whole field of meditation is now beginning to evolve as well, to incorporate more emphasis on the power of meditation in motion. And so this is definitely, I think that's one of the best parts of the practice, is it's only a little bit. Small doses go a long ways. Inside of your guide, and also inside of this book, I have some, I think it's on page 37 for you, connecting your practice to our lokahi wheel. So in terms of your practice and the lokahi wheel, I have something that I like to call the five L's. The 5 L's: look, learn, live, light, and love. And really, so I'll just kind of walk you through this. We begin in air. We always begin in terms of the lokahi, well, we always begin in spirit, but then we go to air, Vijnana Maya Kosha, and so this is the realm of seeing, this is the realm of vision of what is possible. And so it's really the idea that until you can see what is possible, it's difficult to try and learn it. Now, this is separate from play and explore for the sake of playing and exploring. This is kind of more applying this to a particular new pattern that you know you want to learn. So the first step is seeing it, seeing somebody else do it, seeing what's possible out there, and then visualizing yourself doing it. And so it's really difficult for the body to learn a specific pattern. It's easy for the body to come into accidental, beautiful patterns. But if you're trying to learn something specific, if you can't see it, it's going to make it really difficult. So that vision, so look and see it. The next is bringing it into the body. So here's where the earth elements and Anamaya Kosha, the physical body. So this is like the drilling and the creating of the muscle memory, really, truly, the muscle memory. So learning it, we learn in the body. And the body is so connected to the brain that learning cannot happen without the body. And so this is also where we embody the practice. And as we practice more and more and more, the repetitions, now we go into the south and bring in the elements of water that brings life. And then we live the practice. We allow ourselves to not have to think about what we're doing because we have the muscle memory. And here we can feel, we can allow the feeling of the music, the feeling of the sunset, the feeling of the just the entities around us and the guides, and the feeling of the fire within to flow through you. And then now from there we can bring it into a more purpose, not purposeful, but a more specific purpose inside of the fire elements, the Monomayokosha, right? This is where we can, in our retreats, we literally light up with fire, right? Literally light up with fire, but also we can tell the story of something. This is where we really hone in on that deeper layer of what is the story I'm telling with this pattern, and connecting in all that. And so when all of those elements come, when all these elements come together in harmony, we merge into what is the ultimate cosmic flow, which is love and oneness with the poi, with the movement, with the moment, with the breath, with everything. And so where you get to just dissolve into it, and there is no separation between you and your flow, which is a beautiful thing. And so other things in terms of your practice, continue on with the Aloha Flow series. It's a valuable resource to help you to just work on your language, technique, and all of that little by little, and also in the beautiful settings of Hawai'i. And I think another thing is to keep in mind in your practice, this is not in your guide, however I'm going to bring it in here, flow. So we're talking about flow here. And oftentimes it's easy to get this idea that we are, when it comes to flow, if we're not in the ultimate flow state, then we're not in the cycle of flow, or that we should always be like in flow. But that is just not how nature works. We have storms, we have hurricanes, we have earthquakes, we have disruptions in flow. There is kind of an agreement that there's 4 phases of flow. And the first phase of flow is struggle. And so this is a reminder to embrace this experience of struggle. Part of this is where the medicine is truly transforming and rewriting your story around struggle. This is big work for all of us, truly, and it's amazing work. And so the other part of this too, I will say, is that let it be a phase. If you feel yourself in the struggle phase to the point that it's just really, really frustrating, stop. Don't let yourself struggle for too long. It's really important to allow yourself to walk away and to release, right? So that's number 2, actually. So from struggle, we have release. And so this is, the release is the gateway, often the natural doorway to the flow state, to coming into a place where now there is no struggle. It's just ease. And then from there is a natural closing of that and a recovery period. It's very important, recovery, to not be in struggle, to not be in flow, to not be in release, but just to be in rest. And so that's why we have these integration phases. And so we have these 4-week cycles, right? And so on the 4th week, we recover and integrate. And so a nice analogy that I like to share with all beginners is it's kind of like a computer software program, a new software program that you are about to download onto your computer. You go through the process of downloading it, and maybe you don't have to do this anymore. I'm kind of dating myself, but in the old days of computers, in order for the program to be able to run, you had to reboot the computer, download the new software, download the new program, and then turn the computer off. And then when you turn it back on, the program's ready to go. it is frighteningly so similar how we work and how computers work. No surprise there. And so if you think of these as these new programs, they kind of are. So this kind of goes back into these other dimensions of these codes and these patterns, what we're coding. So these new programs that you're downloading into your nervous system, download it and then walk away. Don't try to get it while you're in the struggle. Just be in the struggle and allow yourself to be in the struggle. With that, I think the other part of this is, the last kind of part about this before I let you go play, is to, in your practice, remember that the essence of this practice is that you are moving, that the only way for the poi, the only trajectories that these poi will take are basically sacred geometric patterns, whether it's circles or the spiral or the figure eight, the symbol of infinity, the flower of life, and it goes on and on. And so to just connect with that, just at an energetic level. You won't be able to help but feel that connection to these. And so with that, I think I am complete here. I hope that this has been enriching and helpful, and that you feel more excited and inspired than ever to go and play, and explore. My first more modern poi guru, Nick Woolsey, I tell everyone this, so I'm going to tell you this in this video as well. He said the worst, in his opinion, the worst thing you can do with anyone who is new to poi is to tell them what to do with the poi, besides how to hold them. And so at this point, I invite you and urge you to just explore and play as much as possible, and to know that really this is important, not just in the flow practice, but in so many other practices. Because if we're talking about transformational learning, if we're talking about transforming our lives, then we have to be able to see what's possible. We have to be able to put ourselves in a realm of being present to infinite possibility. However, the more conditioning and the more training we give ourselves, or we are given, right? So if I were to, before you can play with these, I were to tell you exactly what you can do with them, what you can't do with them, this would literally strip away your perceived realm of what is possible with these. And so I invite you to take that into other areas of your life, especially right now in this world that is changing so fast. It's more important than ever to open ourselves up right now to whole new possibilities of thinking, of being, and of living. And somatically, this, and neurophysiologically, this literally happens through learning how to move in new ways. This is probably the most powerful technology to open up to infinite possibilities. So with that, I am complete, and I wish you infinite blessings and joy and magic on your journey with your soul flow Dakini poi.